And within seconds, I was projectile vomited all over my shirt, my pants. And I was like, all right.
Jeff, can you roller skate backwards?
I can't roller skate, period. We literally have no idea what we're doing.
And that's our show.
And there it is. It's over.
Hello. It's great to be with all of you for Worth the Journey, a Worthington Schools podcast. My name is Angie Adrian, and I get to serve Worthington Schools as the Assistant Superintendent of Academics.
I'm Jeff Maddox. I am the Director of Human Resources for the Worthington Schools.
Together, we are your hosts for the podcast and appreciate you taking the time to hear the stories of those that we get to work alongside of in Worthington Schools. You know, we're a district of about 11,000 students and 1,400 staff. We take pride in building those strong relationships with others, and I believe that truly impacts our culture. Culture makes people understand each other better, and I do believe if we understand each other better, it's a lot more fun to be at work.
Without a doubt, and we hope to have this podcast be able to highlight some folks that are going to help lift up the culture even more.
You know, it really takes intentional effort to build these relationships, and one way we have found to do that is through storytelling. Jeff, did you know that storytelling triggers brain responses that affect both our mental and physical makeups?
I did not know that until you just said that.
We do, because stories are proven to motivate and change minds.
I have been known to be a storyteller as my kids kind of express some fear that they project my life a little further out as an older person, and my stories might be getting too long.
Stories are great if they're succinct.
So, are you saying I need to...
I don't know. I like your stories, Jeff. Your stories add much value, I think, to the culture of our district.
Think they're awesome,
I always appreciate your stories.
I always use my kids as a temperature gauge, and recently they're like, Dad, these things are getting a little long.
And I've heard this 5 times.
Exactly.
I think, how many times are you going to tell this story? Worth the Journey, for those of you that may be coming in and listening to Worth the Journey for the first time, it's a podcast with a purpose of just that, to share the stories about the awesome humans that we get to work alongside of each and every day in Worthington Schools.
We've got some awesome ones, and over the course of our journey through this podcast, we're going to be able to highlight many of them.
You know, everyone has a story to tell, but not everyone has someone to listen, especially one that we're going to hear today. So to our audience out there, thanks so much for taking the time to hear a little bit more about PE class, physical education class. Do you have any memories of physical education class?
Well, yes, because it was in fact my favorite class all the way through.
Oh, yeah?
I've got many activities that we played that some of them might be outlawed right now.
Yeah, I can think of one.
And for probably good reasons. And you and I are a generation that got to participate in PE classes and play some games that were amazing.
I'm thinking of one. This is going to be interesting to see if you're thinking of the same one.
So I'm a giant fan of dodgeball.
Oh, absolutely. The little red ball that stung like crazy when it hit you.
Yeah. So we can probably understand why we stopped doing that. But as a kid, that we were allowed to throw somewhat hard rubber balls at folks and get away with it and not get in trouble, that was a fun sport. Floor hockey.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about floor hockey.
Hockey was great. Huge fan of mat ball.
No high sticking, though.
So I'm a fan of mat ball, but I don't like the rule that when you step off the mat, you have to go to the next base. Not a fan
I don't
of that
remember
rule.
that rule.
So we'll find out if Mel holds students to that same.
Yeah, we will.
If you step off, you have to go. Believe it or not, I went to Wilson Hill Elementary School, and Nancy Feist was my PE teacher, and we had a wrestling unit.
Okay.
We stopped doing that.
Yeah. Did the girls participate in wrestling?
We all did. Absolutely.
Nice. That's the way it is now, right?
Absolutely. We had a wrestling unit, gymnastics unit.
I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, right? So played 3 sports, volleyball, basketball, softball, ended up being a collegiate athlete. So I say all of that to let you know that gymnastics unit in high school, the only fail on my report card.
Gymnastics?
Gymnastics.
Was it the balance beam that got you?
I couldn't do it. Balance beam got me. What is that? The horse where you run up and have to jump.
The pommel horse?
The pommel horse. Yes. I got no leeway from my physical education teacher. It's a hard one to swallow, that's for sure.
The further you move away from something, the fonder you remember that. I don't necessarily remember my gymnastics unit being poor, but if I went back and I watched my 9-year-old self on the pommel horse, it was probably very embarrassing.
Yeah, can't do it. Probably still can't do it. With us today, we have Mel Merringer. Mel is in her 2nd year as a physical education teacher at Colonial Hills Elementary School. Mel, you have a story to tell. It's a good one.
It's a crazy story, but it's a beautiful one.
You're in your second year at Colonial Hills Elementary School.
Already in my second year, first year just flew by. It's crazy because you start planning and you're like, man, I don't have the time, like every minute really counts. You got to execute so well. And so looking back at the first year, like it was hard work, but it was never hard to come to work. Like I love getting to do what I do, and I'm so blessed to do that. Looking back, kind of how I got hired, it's a kind of a goofy story, honestly. I started out, I was student teaching at Ecole Kenwood, okay? And that's in Columbus City Schools.
Okay.
I played soccer, I played basketball growing up.
But did you fail gymnastics?
We never did gymnastics.
All right, let's go.
You know what? We did do a yoga unit, and I was like, nah, that's not for me. And I got a 0 in phys ed for that.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't do it. I would not do it.
I know. That's kind of, we'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah. So I refused. I was like, no sports, no running. I'm not doing it. So I was doing cardio drumming. It's like kind of new at the time, coming out of COVID, it was kind of a newer thing. And I had no experience doing it. But I was student teaching this cardio drumming unit. Okay, that's what I'd been assigned. And I was like, let's just go for it. And so I have 5th grade in there. And at the time, what the plan was, we had done a different routine. Like the kids were kind of moving to different songs. And then I was like, let's just do a drum off. Half the kids over here, half the kids over there, they create their own routine. And then we'll like compete and see whose drum off is the best, My mentor teacher, Brian, he walks up to me and he's like, the principal's coming in 5 minutes. You'll be fine. And I was like, what? He's like, you're good, go. I've never taught this before, whatever. And so he goes and he stands off in the corner, and in comes not one principal, but 2. Okay, I didn't know who the other lady was at the time. It's my current principal. When both of them came in, I had 2 groups of 10 kids, just huddled in a circle. And I was like, I've blown it. I'm done. My career is over before it even started. I was like, they have no idea what I'm doing. And so I walked up to him and just kind of described like what's going on. Still had no idea who the other lady was at the time. The kids did the drum off. It worked out. It was kind of cool. Like kids kind of like that, give them the freedom and the liberty to kind of do that. At the end, Sherry walked up to me and she's like, hey, like I'm the principal at Colonial Hills Elementary, and I would love to see you teach again. And, continue to talk from there. Super cool how that worked out. I really was convinced that I had lost my job before it even started, because I was like, I don't know who these 2 people are, but like my career's over. It's just done.
So behind the scenes on that story, Sherry and I had been talking because beloved PE teacher from Colonial Hills, John Blaine, was retiring.
Okay.
John also has a connection to The Ohio State University and PE candidates and students' names. And John brought our name to you. And Sherry and I started talking about you long before you even knew Colonial Hills existed. Okay. So Sherry and I talked about how do we make a connection with this person. We hung up the phone, Sherry said she's going to reach out and call you. And then you and I were going to talk the next day, because I think I'd reached out to you actually to set up an interview for that next day.
Yeah, okay.
Unbeknownst to me, Sherry calls back and says, Jeff, I've met her. And I said, what do you mean you met her? She goes, after we hung up the phone, I got in my car and I drove down to her student teaching experience.
That would be Sherry Burridge.
Introduced myself. Because John said incredibly kind things about you, you are somebody that we needed in our district. We're in a market right now. We got to do things that we normally would have not done to attract folks into the Worthington schools. Good for Sherry on that one.
You never know who's watching, right? We talk about every conversation, every person you meet. It always feels like, or really is, an interview. And for you, it was actually Sherry being in the room during student teaching, right, and watching what you do. So Sherry knew what she wanted. She knew there was potential there and greatness there. And so good for Sherry Burridge for getting out there and recruiting you. And we're so glad that you're in Worthington schools.
I had the opportunity the next day to interview you. And of course, we start with just general, hey, tell me your story. I do genuinely get to hear people's stories because I do kind of want to leave that an open-ended question and allow folks to take it anywhere they want to go with that as they kind of share who they are and why they ultimately feel like they can connect in Worthington. So when I asked you that question, what's your story? I wasn't ready for your answer. You have an incredible story. Why don't you jump in and share your story with us?
So growing up, my parents were both foster parents. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wild thing, but it's amazing. And so I was adopted at a young age. And I actually have a total of 10 siblings. Growing up it was beautiful. It was amazing. I genuinely loved it. I was heavily involved in soccer. I was heavily involved in basketball. As I continued to get older, I just kind of knew I wanted to stay in the sports arena, but I wasn't sure to what degree. I was trying to navigate that. One of my youngest siblings, he actually ended up having like some severe disabilities, and he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and they just weren't sure, like, is he going to walk? Is he ever going to be able to run? Like, is he ever going to be able to perform any sort of sports? Because I knew that had been such a big part of my life growing up. So just growing up, being able to see him go from like kind of like ground zero where they're like, you know what, this is just not going to work for him. And then championing those small moments with him where like, okay, like he can catch the ball or he can take this step, or like just seeing that it was such a beautiful thing. And so going into college, I actually started out as an athletic training major. This was, at the time, I was like, this is really what I want to do. I'm going to ace this, and quickly learned to find out that that's not at all what I wanted to do. And so I was sitting through class one day, just looking at like majors at Ohio State. And I was like, what do we got here, you know? And phys ed shows up, and I was like, what have I been doing my whole life? Both my mentors growing up were my PE teachers. I loved PE, except for yoga. And like, it just made sense, you know, like put two and two together. And so that day I went to my advisor, was like, I'm out, like I got to switch to PE. From the day that I switched, like just phenomenal relationships with my professors that continued to grow over a couple years. And I knew that was where I was supposed to be. I'm very privileged to have found that at such a young age, I think. I think for some people it takes a long time. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, your first job's never really your dream job. And I was like, I disagree. I was like, I feel privileged that like I literally got my dream job as my first job. And so I'm thankful for that.
Why elementary?
That's a cool story, because at first when Jeff and I had interacted, he was like, I kind of told him, I was like, I really want middle school. I coached middle school. I'd student taught middle school. I'd student taught elementary. And so I was kind of towing on the line of middle school. So just interacting with Jeff, I was like, I don't know. I really want middle school. I was kind of waiting for something to open up. This elementary position opened up at Colonial Hills, and I didn't even apply for it. I know we had actually talked in our classes, and everyone was like, I submitted my application, and I was the only one out of 14 people. I did not submit my application because I was like, it's elementary, you know? I had met Sherry. We had came out to the school. All of my siblings, my younger siblings, there's quite a few of them, they're all in the elementary age. I've loved getting to go to my parents' house and just toss the ball with them or whatever it may be, throw the football. And it's just been so fun. And so it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'm not sure if this is it, honestly. But I was like, I'm going to take a chance. And I did, and I have no regrets.
We're glad you did.
One of the things about being an elementary PE teacher is you impact every single student.
Absolutely.
Right, in that school. And so it's not as if you have a class list or it's just first graders or second graders. It's K-5. Mm-hmm. Think about a story where you feel like, as a first-year teacher, you truly impacted the life of a student or students. You made a difference for a child that was taking PE class. Like, is there a story about your impact that you can think of?
We have like this noon option time, right? And then like my lunch is built in right after that. And so it provides a really beautiful time to take kids that, you know, they need that noon option and then extend that into lunch. So I've had some kids that really, really wrestle outside of PE. They just wrestle in the classroom and just behaviorally. And I had 3 students that just, man, like at the beginning of the year, we butt heads. And I was like, and I talked to other teachers and they're like, yeah, we kind of butt heads too in the classroom. And I was like, man, like, what do I need to do? You know, I started taking my lunch period and I was like, you know what? I'm going to let them do what they want in the gym, like, you know, within modification. And so the first day I was like, yeah, you guys can just come hang out. Like, I'm going to eat my lunch and you can bring your lunch or whatever you want to do, you know? And so they come in and they're like, we've got this great rock climbing wall. And they're like, let's go. And I was like, okay, rein it in. Like, we got to do something that's like acceptable, you know? They're ready to go, like no harnesses, no ropes or anything. We just started kicking the soccer ball around. Like, it was really hard for probably 5 months because there's no display of like respect in the classroom. I was like, man, am I rewarding their time when they're not behaving in the classroom? But I know this is what they need because they're not getting this. Just kind of stuck to it. And like I would ask questions and just like try and make that connection. There was nothing at all. And then it was rolling into March, like this had started in September, rolling into March. And finally, like I started to see like they would ask me every day, like, hey, can I come down to the gym? Like, can I come serve in your classroom? And like, that was probably the coolest moment for me, was to have kids who struggled, 3 kids who just struggled so hard behaviorally. And then they wanted to come help kindergarten, and they wanted to come help first grade. And they really wanted to do that. That was kind of a moment for me, like, those 5 months where I just felt I was like dragging my feet in the sand. You're like, it worked.
Yeah. You gave them a sense of ownership. They began to own their work and be mentors for the younger kids.
It's a good reminder that relationships aren't formed overnight. 5 months. That's a long time. If you look at a school years are 9 months. So you spent 5 months of that 9 months building meaningful relationships that are going to carry over into this upcoming school year. What's the age range of your 10 siblings?
Age range. Let's see. My oldest brother is 31. My youngest brother, he just turned 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
So take us inside that house of 10 siblings. How did you get through? How did you navigate bathrooms? How did you navigate cooking meals for that many people? Talk to us what it was like in a house full of 10 folks.
It was super, super fun growing up. One thing that started out like early from the beginning was every meal my mom would be like, all right, like whoever eats their food first gets the biggest dessert. Let me tell you, that was not me. That was never me, ever.
That would have totally been me.
It was brutal.
I would have been done before you even started.
I had an older brother. Like, I stood no chance. And so I remember it was always me at the dinner table. And I was like, I get a crumb. Like, what's the point of this? Like, I'm done. It doesn't even matter. I think a lot of times, like, people are like, oh, big family, like, it's fun. And it is absolutely fun. But it's wild. It's just so wild. Like, we had a good time growing up, but I was one of the older people in my house. And so I had an opportunity to kind of help like my younger siblings. I don't know, it just gives you kind of a sense of purpose at such a young age. And I know I didn't want to lose that when I went to college and further on.
You definitely have a service heart, because every story comes back to you wanting to help somebody. And that's pretty cool. Talk to us about your mom and dad.
Phenomenal people. Adopted me when I was little. Man, they were spot on. They got me so involved in sports at a young age. And I think so much of that made me who I am today. Just committed to service, committed to helping other people. I think a lot of that is kind of where I get that from as well. My dad's a pretty cool guy. He's super laid back and just a fun guy. Mom was like Mrs. Safety, And I'll never forget my dad.
Well, you got 10 folks at home. Somebody's got to pay attention to safety.
Yeah, my dad pulls up with a motorcycle and like brings it in the backyard. And I was like, whoo, like we're taking that to practice. And we did. Like that's exactly what we did. But it was just fun,
Mel, maybe I missed this, but where'd you grow up?
I went to a private high school. It's called Liberty Christian Academy.
Okay.
So went there, graduated from there. And my mom was actually she was a teacher there for a long time. A lot of my siblings went there. And then as we started to get more and more siblings that had, just more special needs, they ended up going more to the public school system.
Gotcha.
Mel, you're a part of a series that we're doing, and we're highlighting different first-year teacher, second-year teacher, new to the profession. You're the elementary person that we're highlighting. Let's talk about the life of a new teacher. So you get that offer to a job, which is incredible. Feels amazing. You're walking on cloud. You're just floating, right? And then you go through new teacher orientation and you get to do the fun stuff and meet Angie's team and do all of that. And then reality comes in, and that is, I got to teach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about your year and your evolution of your first year. And why don't you highlight some of the things that you were proud of? And why don't you highlight some of the things that you struggled with?
I followed a phenomenal phys ed teacher. I believe he was there for 32 years or so. Meeting people at Colonial Hills, the first response was always, oh, you got big shoes to fill. And I was like, I absolutely do. I was super, super excited to just get in that position, bring new things. And so you get through all the technicalities of like orientation and the paperwork and the processes, and then you get in there. I remember my first day, the music teacher, she actually was with me. And so I was like, all right, like, we got this, we're tag teaming it, and it was good. And then the second day, she was not in there. And I was like, oh, like, this is a little different,
This is real.
Yeah, yeah. And so I had all summer to prepare in whatever way I thought or whatever capacity I thought would be good. But the beauty of it is that you really learn. Like, I get to teach the same thing pretty much 4 days in a row. I could teach that to one class and be like, whoa, this was really bad. And then I can make those modifications, make those adjustments. And so I have 4 days to like trial and error, make it the very best that it needs to be. I grew up with a soccer background and I was like, all right, let's start out with this. And I'll never forget the first day I was telling the kids, I was like, all right, wrapping up for class. Let's put the soccer balls back in the bin. And immediately I knew I made a mistake because we need to set them in the bin, but I did not specify. I got nailed in the face before my sentence was even done. You know, like kids are just kicking them, they're chucking them at the bin. One thing I learned is being really, really clear is actually really kind. And that's something we kind of emphasized in a lot of our meetings, but like just being really, really clear with the kids is so helpful for them. And so use the summer to kind of prepare what I thought would be good, what I thought would be, you know, maybe the kids will love this. And it's so funny because I could spend, you know, hours preparing these in-depth like sequence that like this makes pedagogical sense to do it this way. And then the kids will be like, we don't like this game, you know? And then you Google like, hey, what's this game? And it's like, it takes 2 seconds to set up and they're like, this is the best. And I'm like, what? Like how? Going through the first year, I had a lot to learn. So much to learn. Every day, literally every single day was getting something new. Looking back, I'd like to say like I taught the kids a lot, but I think the kids taught me even more. I don't know, that's been super cool to just kind of reflect on. A couple things that I don't want to say it's my motto, but if you can't do the small things well, you're not going to be able to execute the big things well. At university, they were always so detail oriented, like make sure you get this in your lesson plan and get this. And I was like, man, you got to write out minute to minute, like 8 45-minute classes, you know? But then you get there and you're like, oh, so worth it. Like just trusting that process and then executing, you know, on the big scale because you did those things on the small scale. I think that shows up not just from a lesson plan standpoint, but in everything. A typical class for me would look like, you know, the kids come in, they have assigned shape. They sit on that shape. We go through our warm-up every single day. The warm-up changes, but it's the same routine. And then we get into our activity, and then our game. Being really clear with them, just saying like, hey, this is what every day is going to look like. So they have that, like that safety and the consistency.
I want to go back to elementary school and be a PE student in Mel's class. Do you think she'd let us play dodgeball?
I don't think she would because I think there's actually state law that says you're not allowed to do it anymore. But maybe just you and I sneak in there.
We could.
We could.
I'm definitely going to go watch her class this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, come on in. You should have come in when you did roller skating. I mean, that was...
Oh, that'd be fun.
That was a lot of fun.
That'd be fun. Jeff, can you roller skate backwards?
I can't roller skate, period.
You can't?
Well, I can if there's a wall involved. I can hold on to it.
Nope. So there was no roller skating backwards. There was no couple skate. No couple skate.
Moonlighting. That's what it was called at the USA roller skating rink was... It's now time for moonlighting.
That was couple skate.
Can you roller skate backwards?
I used to be able to roller skate backwards. Really? It's been a long time since I've been on roller skates, but I was pretty good at one time.
No, I roller skate. People get hurt because if I'm going down, I'm bringing people with me.
So Mel, you're entering your second year. It probably feels different. What advice would you give a new teacher now that you know what you know?
Do the small things well so you can execute the big things. Literally every interaction matters. Everything you say matters. Like kids will tell you the same thing 16 times, but they want you to be excited all 16 times, you know? And you just do it for them, you know? And that's a big thing. Whatever you choose to do, work-wise, career-wise, whatever it is, always give 110%. You know, no one pays you to be average. No one wants you to be average. Even if you're like, you know what? This is not the season I want to be in. This is not where I want to be. Give 110% because you're going to get something back out of it. The third thing, they always say get on the kids' level. I've learned that is not the best idea with kindergarten. So maybe don't do that because every time I did that, I ended up sick the next day. Kids were throwing up on me. I'll never forget. It just it dawned on me. Like my teachers were always like, get on the student's level. I had a kid one day and I was like, why are you crying? Like what's going on? And I got down on my knees and within seconds I was projectile vomited all over my shirt, my pants. And I was like, all right, you know what? You stay at your level. I'll stay at my level.
Get on their level, but keep your distance.
But keep your distance. So just be a little thoughtful about that. Yeah.
So when you got stuck, Mel, and let's be honest, all educators, I don't care if you're first year or 35 years in.
Yeah.
And you got yourself to a spot where you're stuck, you don't know what to do next, you're struggling with something. What did you do? Talk to us that process. How do you work yourself out of that? And who did you turn to?
What I kind of did, like through the school year, I started out with things that I knew, things that were comfortable to me, things that I'd coached, and then that's not going to last really long. Knowing like Colonial Hills has a big volleyball background, I was like, all right, we're going to knock this volleyball unit out of the park. That was actually my second evaluation day was going to be my volleyball unit. I kid you not, we couldn't even get the ball over the net. I had third grade. We weren't using a volleyball. We were using a beach ball. Kids were just hitting it across the room. They were getting popped left and right. I ended up not even having enough. The unit prior was a smooth success. And then this was just the biggest fail ever. What I had to do was really just reset. I was like, hey, you know what? I apologize. I was not prepared for this. And I told the kids that. I was like, I know some of you are really excited for this unit. And so we're going to kind of reset and come back next year and we'll revisit it then. The teacher before me had a phenomenal volleyball program. And so just going to him and being like, hey, you know what? Can we kind of wrestle through this? My professors, a couple of them had a really strong volleyball background, and just talking with them and networking. I have coaches that are middle school volleyball coaches. And so just using those people that have poured into your life and like that have been put in your life for a reason. And I think just networking with them, reaching out to them, like they're there to support you and to help you. But I think the biggest thing is like, if you think you're going to be great at everything, you're going to fail really fast. Execution is excellence. And I think a lot of us want that excellence piece. But like you got to execute. I had to execute time and time and time again. And that execution wasn't always pretty. There were days where I was like, this is the worst activity I have ever created. And then there were days where I was like, most simple activity, and the kids love it, you know?
Here's what I've learned about Mel listening to her talk, Ange, is she takes her work very seriously. But if you watch her tell the story, she doesn't take herself that seriously.
No.
Right? She's able to reflect and laugh at herself and learn and grow, which is really cool.
And what I appreciate about the stories that you're sharing, Mel, are really about the relationships that you have with kids and the teachers. And one of the things that we talk about in Worthington schools is we want every student to have a trusted adult. And my guess is you have a lot of students at Colonial Hills where you are their trusted adult. So that's pretty cool. Did you feel like you as a first year teacher had a trusted colleague or a trusted adult in the building that you could go to?
Yeah, absolutely. The support that I had was just unmatched. Like realistically, the support from the staff in the building, the support from even just district wide. We had those meetings where we could come in if we needed anything. And I think we may not show up every time for that, but just knowing like, hey, you've got our back if we ever need something like that. Yes, the support was unmatched.
Who was your mentor this year?
Who was my mentor? It was the librarian, Martha Mickey.
Martha Mickey was?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Martha just retired.
She
did, yeah.
So sad.
Yeah.
Shout out to Martha.
As a teacher, I think a lot of people are like, oh, you teach phys ed, sports, and you do. You absolutely do. In the realm of physical education, it is so much bigger than just sports and physical activity. Like, you really have to teach kids how to be like good people. And I tell them that my role is not to make you an expert tennis player, but to make you ultimately a better person. Just one super cool thing this past year that I got to do, I had a student who was just like hanging out with me every day. We would play on my plan, we would play soccer, basketball, whatever it is. One day we were eating an apple and he was like, let's go plant these seeds. And I was like, these apple seeds, you know? Like what? It was February and I was like, I've never planted an apple seed in my life. He's like, we got to find a shovel. So we found a shovel and like got to go outside and plant these apple seeds. I mean, they got mowed over the first time in the season.
But you did it.
Yeah, we tried it. And so that's like, it's just super cool. Like you never know what you're going to get to do. Just opening yourself up to those moments to like find joy in that. Like that is a super, super cool thing for teaching.
It's a great story.
So Mel, I think you realize this. These are really hard questions. I respect the fact that you recognize that they're hard, so I will take it easy on you, but you cannot pass on any of these. You must have a take. You must have an opinion. If you ask to pass, I won't let you.
Okay.
Favorite NFL team?
Seattle Seahawks.
Well, there's got to be a story. You grow up in Columbus, Ohio. How are you a Seattle Seahawks fan?
Hey, maybe it's the color.
It's a phenomenal look. Also, I thought,
There we go.
That's honestly pretty much the extent of it. I like the colors, and
My
I thought about going to University of Washington at some point. So I was like, the Seahawks. You know.
What is your favorite candy of all time?
Oh, I get hate for this all the time. Whoppers, I love them.
Whopper's the one with like the malt in the middle.
Yep.
Favorite TV show as a kid?
Scooby-Doo.
Can you do a Scooby-Doo voice?
Absolutely not. I'm a PE teacher.
Hey, Maggie.
It's the only reason he likes to ask these questions.
What is your favorite Halloween costume as a kid?
Ooh, I dressed up like an M&M one year. I thought it was pretty cool.
What color?
Green.
Mel Merringer, M&M.
Oh. Uh-huh. Corey, everyone. Welcome to the show, Corey.
I'm just saying, there's layers here.
We got a caller coming in. His name's Corey. What show on Netflix did you recently binge watch?
I started this really boring documentary about nature, and it's a no-go. So that's all I got.
Favorite Disney television show that you watched growing up?
Oh, Ratatouille, hands down. I didn't even watch the Disney Channel, really. But if it had to be something, Phineas and Ferb, every time.
All right, Phineas and Ferb. What food could you not live without?
Chipotle.
Do you do the bowl or do you do the burrito?
I just do the bowl because I'm always nervous I'm going to get food stuck in my teeth.
What dance move are you secretly awesome at?
I can floss really good because the kids always ask me to.
So you're pretty good at the floss?
I'm a pro.
What sport did you try as a child and fail?
Cross country. We had a big team of 3 people, and it was brutal. Like soccer, you run to chase something, you know? I was just like, what are you chasing, the wind? You know, it was terrible.
Texter or talker?
Talk.
And then my final question, most importantly, question of all time, what is the greatest cereal of all time?
Cookie Crisps.
That's a new one.
That's a new one, and that's also a very good cereal. I have a rubric that it scores high on the party in the mouth, and that is that you eat it and you just put a smile on your face. Cookie Crisp is that cereal.
Hey, Mel, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to have you. You are entering your 2nd year, and I know it's going to be a great year for you. And you just sharing your story of gratitude and just what you expect and know that your students can be. And as a PE teacher in an elementary school, you're the go-to a lot of times for the principal, right? You probably help out a lot in that building. And so we just appreciate all that you do for Colonial Hills and glad you're in Worthington School. So thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
If you want to hear more, you can find us on our Worthington Schools website and on Spotify. A big thanks to Corey Carter and our communications team for making this podcast a reality. And of course, to our students at The Ohio State University in the communications department. The journey may not always be easy, but it'll definitely be worth it. Thanks for taking care of each other and have a great day out there.